What's going on, guys? My name is Tuck. Some of you know, some of you care, some of you don't know, some of you don't care. Either way, that's fine. We're gonna have a little bit of a discussion today. At the time I'm recording this, the beta ends very soon, so by the time this video goes up, the beta will just be about to end, or it will have ended by the time this video is published. The gameplay in the background is just gameplay from the beta. It's neither good nor bad, it's just there for something to watch in case you don't want to stare at me. We're just gonna talk about the beta, some feedback, some things I like, some things I didn't like. It's not gonna be super structured, it's gonna be open for conversation, so if you have opinions on stuff that I've said, whether you agree, disagree, or have your own thoughts you want to share that I completely forgot, because it's probably going to happen, comment sections down below. So with that said, let's hop in. I don't really know where to start, so I have a coin. If it lands on heads, we're going to start with the pros. If it lands on tails, we're going to start with the cons. And I don't know if it's going to pick it up, but it landed on heads, so we're starting with the pros, I think is what I said. If I didn't, I'm just going to look silly. So starting off with one of the two biggest W's of the entire beta, I feel like people pretty universally agree on both of these, is number one, the maps are actually good. Like, I'm never one to glaze Call of Duty. I'll give credit where credit is due, and I will criticize the game where criticism is needed. The maps in the BO7 beta, I think there were like 4 or 5 of them. Every single one of them is better than any of the original maps they had in Black Ops 6, and I will die on that hill. If you go back to my video where I was critiquing Black Ops 6 and people said I was being dramatic or I was just hate farming, I said that the maps in the BO6 beta and the full release whenever I made that video too were absolutely terrible. Because another problem with Call of Duty going back to MW 2019, the spawns really aren't that great, and if the maps aren't great, that makes the spawns seem worse, and when the spawns seem worse, the maps play worse. It's just a never-ending cycle. So at the very least in Black Ops 7 so far, we've remedied one of the problems, which means the other one won't seem as bad. One thing specifically about the maps before I move on is that I've seen people online complaining about how the maps like have nothing going on in them. They're pretty bare bones, they're pretty basic, and to that I say I don't really care. If the map plays well, the map plays well. Hopefully I'm correctly quoting War Owl whenever I say that the aesthetics of the map are basically there to enhance the gameplay. They shouldn't take away from the gameplay. The aesthetics should never be the main focus. Is it an added bonus if the maps look nice? Absolutely. I love things that are aesthetically pleasing, but at the same time, I would rather a map play well than be pretty. The other big thing that I think universally was agreed upon by the player base is the no skill-based matchmaking playlist. The open playlist, mosh pit, or whatever it was called in the beta was probably one of the best things they could do. Whether it's implemented in any capacity in the actual release, I have no idea, and personally I think it should be like the default playlist style. And that's not even coming from somebody that primarily plays public match Call of Duty. I play ranked play, I play private matches, I play the competitive side of COD where basically there is no escaping the skill-based matchmaking, so me vouching for a no skill-based matchmaking public match literally doesn't impact my life whatsoever, other than the fact that it'll make the rest of the player base happy, and if the rest of the player base is happy, they'll be more interested in the game, and if they're more interested in the game, they have a higher chance of being interested in the esports side, which is just beneficial for me by the trickle-down effect, I suppose. I don't know if you guys know, but I have a pretty strong theory based on literally how every other video game works, that if the base game is good, the base game is enjoyed by the masses, the esport will be more enjoyed by the masses as well, just because more people will care about the game. It's happened in other games, like I said, it's even happened in Call of Duty. We've witnessed it firsthand. So yeah, I'm all for the no skill-based matchmaking playlist being the default playlist in the game when it fully comes out, just because I want people to like the game. What a concept. And then the other two things I have written down for the pros in my notepad, I'll just cover really quickly because I actually bring them up in the cons section as well. It's a double-edged sword with these ones. One, the gunplay feels nice. I do like the way the gunplay feels. Generally, Call of Duty doesn't do bad gunplay. We'll talk about the negative to that in a second. The other point I have that has a caveat to it is that the streaks are actually fun and usable in this game. There's a point to the streaks. I actually want to get my kill streaks. And we'll use that talking point just to transition straight into the cons. Although the streaks are fun and usable, there are some streaks, mainly more equipment on this point, but there are some streaks in the game that are literally just straight up cheats. And that is what it is. You should definitely be rewarded for getting a kill streak. Your equipment should have a use, but the problem is with the equipment specifically is that you just die and you throw another one. It's just spammy. There are certain pieces of equipment in the game where they're just always on the battlefield, and it makes the game basically unplayable if you're in a lobby of, like, especially a full 6-man of people just spamming equipment. I don't know, that one might be a little nitpicky, but it did annoy me quite a few times in certain matches. I didn't write it down, but I think another problem I had with the score streaks in general is that some of them are, like, impossible to call in. Like, you can call them in, of course, but, like, they're harder to call in than they should be, and that also annoyed me a little bit, but maybe that's a skill real issue. If I suck, I suck, I'll admit to it. And then circling back to my problem I had with the weapons is that they all kind of feel the same. My initial point was the gunplay feels good. I stand by that. The gunplay does feel good, but when every weapon feels the same, there could legitimately be 2 or 3 weapons in the game, and that would just be it, because they all kind of feel the same when they're decked out with 8 attachments. Again, that's another problem that kind of just goes back to how Call of Duty started to be formulated back in MW 2019. It is what it is. I'm not really gonna dive too much into that as a complaint because there's nothing that can be done about it, but it is one of the issues I do have. All the guns just kind of feel like the same gun. The next point on my list I have is just the perks in general. I don't really like the way they're organized. Since they changed the way the Omni movement works, where you have to run dexterity if you want to be able to slide and aim down sight at the same time, everybody is running dexterity, and I mean, like, basically anybody that has any common sense and brain activity is running dexterity. It is a crutch perk that you have to run if you want to compete in the game. You can't not run it if you want to have any amount of success. So the fact that people are forced to run dexterity means it really limits what other perks they can run, which means like the variation of perks you can run is super limited. The one example that comes to mind just from the beta that I can think of off the top of my head, that if you weren't running the wild card for perks, you basically had to choose between whether you wanted to slide while aiming with dexterity or flak jacket or tac mask, which there are people that are gonna argue, well, you have to pick and choose which one you want. Yeah, I get that, but at the same time, like, I don't feel like that should be the choice that's made, you know? I don't remember what category Ninja was in, whatever perk makes you silent in this game, but I feel like you should have to choose between Ninja or wanting to be blown up, rather than the crutch perk dexterity or wanting to be blown up. There's a chance the developers didn't know dexterity was going to be this important, but like, if dexterity's that important. And then the last 2 points I have jotted down basically go together. So the spawns in Team Deathmatch and Kill Confirmed, while I did say the maps are better, and while the better maps make the spawns seem less worse, in Team Deathmatch and Kill Confirmed, the spawns actually made no sense. And I guess to an extent they don't have to make sense. They're not supposed to really make sense. TDM and Kill Confirmed are supposed to be like controlled chaos for 4 to 5 minutes at a time, which, like, whatever. I'm never going to be playing TDM or Kill Confirmed in the full release, so it's not going to impact my life. But it's something that I did notice, and it transitions into my next point, which was the new game mode Overload. I hope that's what it's called. The rumored 3rd game mode for competitive, which is the one thing objectively on this list that impacts what I do. So, like, in my opinion, the problem with the game mode Control in the past few games is that it's just a game mode where you can win the entire game by spawn trapping. I don't think that's super competitive. And based off of what I played in the beta on the few maps of Overload I did get to spawn into, it did not solve the problem of getting spawn trapped. Maybe there are other maps that the game mode plays better on. Maybe the game plays slightly differently in a 4v4 setting as opposed to 6v6, but if it plays the way it played in the beta, just with less players on the map, yeah, we're still getting spawn trapped if you, like, it's that big of a mismatch. Like, in my opinion, the way the game modes in competitive should work is that the objective should be the first thing you're trying to accomplish, and you achieve that objective by getting kills. But the way that Control is played out, the way that Domination played out in 2019, the way that this game mode played out in the beta, you basically just play TDM with an optional objective that you occasionally do. That's where I feel like game modes like CTF that we played in the past were better, because you have to cap the flag in order to win the game mode. You can't just dwindle out lives. With that said, do I feel like it could be better than Control? Absolutely. Control was hot ass. The bar for the 3rd game mode is so low in the Call of Duty League era between Domination and Control that I don't feel like they could make a worse game mode if they tried, but at the same time, like I said, it just didn't solve the problem. In a perfect world, we would just play Capture the Flag, but the average viewer just doesn't care about Capture the Flag, so it's kind of a detriment to the esports, so that sucks. But that is where I'm going to leave off with this video of feedback, good or bad, for the Black Ops 7 beta heading into the full release. If you guys have any opinions on what I said, comments down below. If I forgot something that you want to talk about, comments are down below. With that said, I don't know where that leaves us in terms of the rest of this video. If there's gameplay left, please enjoy the rest of the gameplay. If I planned this accordingly, the video ended when the gameplay ended, so that would have been cool. Like and sub down below. We're on the road to 8K subs, and I will talk to you in whatever my next video may be. Boys and girls, a pizza.
Hardpoint is active. MTC is running dry. It is now or never. Hardpoint locked down. Hostile personnel have captured the hardpoint. Hardpoint located.
Shot good. Incoming cluster.
Hardpoint active.
Enemy marked
Control the
me shooting.
hardpoint.
Standing by.
Get me eyes in the sky.